I don't know. Vegas gave her more fuel, so she gonna have some things on that whiteboard that are gonna have this team ready to go.
Welcome to We Need to Talk Now, presented by AT&T. I'm Alicia Jay. I'm here with Ashley Nicole Moss and Erica Ayala. And you guys, these WNBA playoffs, they have not disappointed in the least. I mean, definitely delivered on a vibe standpoint. So I'm glad we're here to talk all about that first round because, baby, in Erica's voice.
Yeah, it has delivered and then some. But before we get into it, we have to just do our regular housekeeping and remind all of you to follow us on our social media platforms to make sure you are subscribed with your notifications turned all the way up for our YouTube channel, because you don't want to miss a minute of our reporting, analysis, opinions on these crazy WNBA post-season games. So much to talk about. There's going to continue to be so much to talk about. And then before you know it, it's the off season and there's even more to talk about. But we're getting ahead of ourselves there. Just want to remind you to subscribe, like, notifications up. And if you're someone who prefers to listen to their pods, that's okay too. Because if you scan this QR code wherever you get your podcasts, you will find us. And we are on Spotify. We are on Apple. So look, there's no reason to not be tapped in with us right here at We Need to Talk Now. And I just realized, guys, that my mic isn't on. So I'm going to continue talking as I plug this in. No one's hitting me the heads up. We're sitting here.
And you sound good on this end, but
all right. Well, that's good to know. Shout out to my laptop for coming clutch with the good mic, but I'm gonna switch it. Okay, there we go.
Okay.
Look, this was probably one of the most exciting first rounds of the WNBA playoffs. I feel like in recent memory, I think that's fair. It's kind of been the consensus. There's been a lot of upsets. There's been a lot of thrillers. There's been a lot of close games. And honestly, there's been a lot of predictions that have been completely inaccurate, including on this very panel. Just wanting to make that clear. We are not above laughing at ourselves. NBA star Isaiah Thomas actually tweeted something out that I think a lot of people can agree with. He said, yo, WNBA, let's extend this first round to at least a 5-game series. The level of hoop is too good to just be doing a best of 3. I completely agree. Mm-hmm. I think that I've always kind of been perplexed why it's only been 3 games. It just really doesn't make sense to me. And I just feel like overall, as the league continues to grow and as more teams are brought into the W, we're always talking about the expansion. There's several expansion teams on the horizon. We obviously got one this year officially with the Valkyries, but there's several more that are waiting to join this league in the next coming of years. Toronto in 2026. We have Cleveland. We still don't know what's going on with the Connecticut Sun, who's buying them, but we know that's going to change their location. And there's just so much happening within this league that it almost doesn't seem feasible to just keep the playoffs as they currently are. But outside of that, there's several things that we can discuss. The Golden State Valkyries, although their fight came to the end, historic sellout game for them. I'll let one of y'all dissect that if you want to. Several of the games, 3 of the 4 went to game 3s, which was great television. Like I said, a lot of upsets, a lot of nail biters. The New York Liberty, we're gonna pour one out for the homies. They officially, as the reigning champs, got bounced from the WNBA playoffs. Maybe some will say for the better. But look, a lot to discuss. Erica, I'll start with you. Biggest takeaway just from the first round?
I mean, honestly, I think I agree with IT here. Like, I mean, I've been saying that. I'm also not a fan of the 1-1-1. I think you could go a 1-2, but again, if you make it a best of 5, you ain't got to worry about that. I like the idea of, thinking about how to expand the playoffs, but also, as we talked about, protecting the players and thinking about their recovery. And so I think a 5-game series allows you to do that while still giving the lower seed at least a little taste, right, of a home game, but keeping that home advantage, for the higher seed without having to make travel a little crazy. I think that Golden State, Alicia, you almost had that prediction. I was ready. I was watching that game like, dang, Ashley, she about to drag us.
Yeah, we really laughed at her.
Oh, don't think I didn't have things ready to go.
I was ready, and that's why I didn't even say nothing.
I was going to repost my posts. Don't even worry. I had stuff ready to go.
Like, the disrespect was loud. But, I was just like, it just seemed really bold to me at the time. And then I had to, even in that show, I was like, well, wait a minute, actually, this is a team that, I don't know, they play defense, they box out. We could talk about the New York Liberty, and maybe boxing out, they could learn something from Golden State. But I think also Indiana was, even with Golden State, Indiana is probably the team that surprised me the most. I didn't know they had it in them. And that's on me too. That's on me.
I'm with you there, sis, though, because I
didn't either. We all just sat here like, great season, y'all.
Great season. We want more for Kelsey Mitchell. Get healthy, y'all. 5 season injuries and a coach on the DL too, on the IL, excuse me. Like, that's crazy. That's crazy, So they were probably the biggest surprise, which makes them kind of the wild card for me going into the semifinals.
I would not want to see Indiana. I really wouldn't. When I look at the way that this season has gone and the playoffs has gone in, and also just the caliber of teams that we have in this league, that is why we're seeing all these amazing games, right? There's so many players that are evenly matched up, or even the heart is even if the health isn't there, the heart is matching the play on these other teams. And so when I think about Indiana coming into this, while none of us did pick them to go on, and just being totally transparent, and not many did, okay? But when I see them, they have nothing to lose going into this next round. They have 5 key players that have been sidelined with injury for the whole season, or for a portion of the season, rather. And they just know going into it that they're going to fight. They're going to leave it on the court every night. And that's a dangerous team to play no matter who you are. So to me, they're the team I'm going to watch most closely, because when you have all of that behind you, and you have the heart, and you have their fans are obviously behind them 1000%. They have really diligent fans when it comes to the team. And so, if that's the word, there's some other words we could use, but it's just, they're a team that's dangerous, and I personally would not want to play them in this round.
Yeah, they protect home court. That's real. That is real. I think, just real quick, another thing that I found pleasantly surprising is, Seattle. We thought, I know, I'll put this on me. I want to speak for y'all. I definitely thought that Minnesota was their best shot to maybe have a competitive round 1. And then they showed out against Vegas too. So that was they needed that.
Yeah.
A little too late, unfortunately for them. But I think you got to hold on to that. New York a little bit too, that was the question. Could those teams fight? Could they scrap? Because that's what was needed in the first round. And we see the teams that got through, they had to really gut it out. And much respect. I think it was a great first round.
Well, and with Seattle, one of my favorite things about watching that series was Dominique Malonga. She is a star. Imagine being 19 years old and playing in this league, and we just saw this glimpse of greatness that we know that she has. And she showed it to us in many ways. She stepped up big with that free throw even in the game. And so Skylar said, she's a star. She's been a star. And for her to see her excel in this year in her rookie season, and we're just seeing probably 1/10 of what she can do, if not lower than. Yeah, and even when she was hanging on the rim, I don't know if you got, it was probably a little bit of nerves too when it came to that. But when she was hanging on the rim, in that dead time, I was just like, girl, I can't wait to see all that athleticism pop out in different ways. So we got an amazing glimpse of what she can do, and I can't wait to see at the level that she rises to in this league.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just a lot to be excited about, a lot to discuss, a lot to feel, different emotions about the first round altogether. But I think the next thing we're going to discuss, Alicia, is obviously two teams that I think it's fair to say nobody anticipated this matchup, and nobody anticipated, for different reasons, these two teams maybe even being in this situation. I'll let you obviously tee this up. We have the Fever, though, a team that kind of struggled with just a plethora of injuries. It was a domino effect. And then you had the Aces, who we spoke about on this podcast a lot in the first part of the regular season, that just did not look like the championship Las Vegas Aces. And you kind of thought, well, every good thing must come to an end. And here we are. The joke is on the three of us. So, Alicia, like, what the heck is going on here? We got to preview this.
We have a lot to talk about when it comes to Aces Fever, but I just have to kind of button up the last thing we were talking about in that first round. Can we talk about how fast the Aces turned off the lights when they were done with that game? Ashley, did you see it?
I did. What do you mean turn off the lights?
So go ahead, Erica.
In the arena, I'm talking Gabby Williams. I legitimately didn't even see where her shot hit the ground until the next day, because them lights went out. Yes. When I tell you, like, they didn't even wait, because she released the shot, and so time expired. It either was gonna fall or not. But we didn't even get to see it. They was like, nope, it's over. It's a wrap.
They said, look, you ain't got to go home, but you got to get the hell up out of here.
basically, someone was like, Teddy Pendergrass must have gotten in the like,
that right. It's been real. Yeah. Go home.
Exactly. And as somebody, like, I used to work in game operations, and that's who like controls, all of the entertainment and everything that you see in the bowl that's not the actual play. And it triggered me, because I was like, somebody did that way too early, and they gonna get a little talking to. Because Ashley, when I tell you the ball left her hands, you couldn't even see where it was going. Lights out, completely dark. Aces win. So, but this kind of speaks to the series moving forward. So the Aces really eked that win out. They really did. And and they should be, they should be so glad that she didn't sink that last shot, but also just in the fact that they really got to the next round by this much, okay? And so when you look at, and we spoke to this earlier, when you look at the Aces who are playing the Fever, and this is a team that literally has nothing to lose. They've already exceeded what people have thought they were going to do. And they're a team that is just like, we can win this thing, and that's dangerous. And they also have key players like Aaliyah Boston and Kelsey Mitchell that are going off and playing outside of themselves in a lot of different ways. They're being put in the best position for their play at this very moment. And so we talked about timing for the Aces. Well, the Fever are coming in with some great timing as well. And the Aces simply cannot play the way that they played in the last round and make it against this Fever team, because they want it just as badly, if not more than they do. They need to come in and retool some things, shut some people down, use that defense that they have built, within their team. People are going to have to step up. Melissa Smith is going to have amazing game. Jackie, the team is going to have to step up in major ways to get to that final round, because if they play the way that they played in this last series, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting matchup, because even if you look at the stats in game 3, like, you could be like, oh, well, you see what the Aces did against Seattle, and you're thinking like points in the paint is where they're going to try and, really attack an Indiana squad. And maybe they're a little bit exposed with only 30% from from the arc, right, from the perimeter. And then you look at what Indiana was able to do against an Atlanta team that outscored them 56-42 in the paint. They had Bree Jones, Brittany Griner, and they still eke out a win. I think things like fast break points, turnovers is going to be huge because both of these teams can attack. I think also as much attention is going to be given to Asia Wilson, and very rightfully so, put some respect on her name. We already heard Asia, she was like Asia Wilson, baka baka ba, or something, that's my Erica interpretation of what she said. But basically she was like, y'all talking about me. Look at what look at what Jackie's been doing for us. And I know we have been talking about Jackie Young because we've started to see her settle into her leadership style, her playing style, and be unapologetic. There have been times, especially when this team, the Aces, had Kelsey Plum, that Jack could kind of slip and kind of, step back a little bit. Chelsea Gray also still on this team, but I think she's ready to go now. And so defensively, I think that's where I probably give the edge to the Aces. But, guarding Kelsey Mitchell actually ain't no easy thing.
Yeah. No, you know what? And it's interesting because we had this conversation last show where our predictions were all off, but that's okay. That's what happened. And I think one thing we said was like, anticipating that the Fever were going to get bounced. We said the most unfortunate thing is like we haven't really seen the team as a complete unit, so that going into the off season, you kind of know what to work on, what to adjust. But I think that this matchup against the Aces, regardless of how it plays out, could be a really good learning curve for them in helping to develop the team for the next season. Yes, obviously the team looks a lot different when Sophie's on the floor or when Caitlin's on the floor. And, you can't recreate that. But I do think it is a good gauge to go against a team that also kind of struggled, but did struggle in the first half of the regular season. A championship caliber team that was able to flip the switch after the All-Star break and go on an insane run. And how you're able to kind of match up with them in this series, the level of competitiveness, how close the games are able to be night in and night out, I think could be a really good learning curve, not only for the players who are able to play, for the players who are watching this series, and also for the coaching staff. I think that this is kind of a silver lining. Obviously, the Fever would want to win this. It's going to be a tall mountain to climb, I think, for both teams for different reasons. But I'm looking at it also from a developmental standpoint. I think that this could be really good for the Fever, regardless of the outcome.
Well, and also, when you think about the Fever, I can't state this enough. They have this emotional element that they, the heart of just what they've gone through in the season and how they have persevered. And now they are, in this part of the playoffs. Kelsey Mitchell actually spoke about like just how Steph White is, how the coaching, how she is as a coach. She said, I've had 5 coaches in 8 years. I've never had a coach that poured into me respectfully like Steph has. I go where I'm valued, and I've never really felt that as a pro. For the first time in my career, I feel like I have someone that values what I bring to the table as a player and as a person. When you find coaches that believe in you, I'll never take it for granted. And those sentiments, can be seen amongst the whole team. They've talked about the next man up mentality, and just we've seen it all season that they've had to fill the void in the spots that have come up, and they've done that to get to where they are today. And that right there is not something that you can like really teach. It happens, right? Yeah. It's part of the culture of being on a team, and that's what's happening with Indiana right now.
And just to look at the other side of this, Indiana has had success against the Las Vegas Aces in the regular season. If you're Indiana, that's something that you're looking at. If you're the Aces, that's something that you're like, well, that don't mean no thing. This is a clean slate. And we even heard Becky Hammon talk about that. She addressed it saying that, this Fever team hasn't met the real Aces, Slim Shady done flipped the switch at some point in the season. So now it's time for the real Aces to step up. And that's what we've seen in the 16 games leading into the postseason. And they got it back. Yes, they had to kind of eke out that win, but they got it. A little help from the staff with the lights, but to make it more dramatic. But as if that game needed more drama. But I think it's going to be a really good, like Ashley said, a really good test, a really good battle. And I can't talk enough about Kelsey Mitchell. We saw that officially she's one of the 5 MVP candidates. I know we've talked about our votes, and she definitely was top 5 for me. She talked about in that quote, Alicia, that you just read through, that she's been with this organization. She's seen the ups and downs. She talked about it this year, remembering when people weren't even coming out to the games. They weren't even at Gamebridge because there was renovations or whatever happening, and nobody was showing up. And for her to stick it out and to finally feel like she's getting the respect first from her coach, I think that's also showed in her game. She's talked about how she's worked out and doing football workouts and exercises to get that lateral movement. Her explosiveness is I think the league actually had asked point guards, who's the hardest guard in the league to guard? And Kelsey Mitchell, time in, time out, they were like, oh yeah, and that's what we're going to see. So I love that we're seeing this on display. I hope that, her value is felt, especially in a year where you don't have Caitlin Clark and 4 other stars that have gone down with season-ending injuries that we already talked about, because Kelsey Mitchell she's been that for Indiana. And all of the pieces that you bring in, Boston and Howard and Colson and of course Clark, they're still working and operating in a system that Kelsey Mitchell has effectively perfected. And that's what we're seeing on display right now.
Overall, just really impressed by the Fever's, next woman up mentality. And it's going to be a really good series for similar and then also different reasons. But we're going to switch gears and talk about another really good series, and that's the Lynx versus the Mercury. Now, this is interesting, because the Lynx are the only team in the playoffs to only have to play 2 games in the first round. So they're coming in rested. They coasted through their last series. It was easy breezy for them. They've been waiting for their opponent. And you have the Mercury, which it pains me to have this conversation, and it's not the Liberty, but they took down the reigning champs. So they're feeling, if they weren't already feeling good, they're got an extra pep in their step going against a Lynx team that's extremely tough, that's looking for their lick back, not necessarily against the Mercury. A lot of people wanted that rematch of the Liberty and the Lynx. We know how controversial that WNBA finals was for a lot of people. Doesn't matter. We got the win. We got the dub. We had the parade. Anyway, not getting that rematch. But if you're the Mercury and you took down the reigning champs, you have to have a little bit of an ego, and rightfully so. You want to be the best, you got to beat the best. And they took down the best, and now they're looking down to take down one of the other better teams in the league this entire season. And that's the Lynx. So, Alicia, what are you looking forward to? We'll start with you. This matchup is kind of the tales of 2 different tapes, if you will.
Well, it's going to be interesting because I feel like this is the first time we're going to see these 2 teams that are both firing on all cylinders right now really play each other. Because the last time they played each other, Minnesota won 79-66, but Phoenix was without Kalia Copper and Satu Sabali. And obviously those are 2 key players for Phoenix. And so going into this, I'm excited, especially for game 1, because we're really truly going to see what this matchup is going to look like for real for the first time this season. But what I will say is this: yes, Phoenix did take down the reigning champs, but they took down the reigning champs that are not the team that we saw last year because of injury or whatever was happening within the team. We did not see a New York Liberty team like we saw last year. We just haven't. And, shout out to Stewie, because Stewie really held it down yesterday. I'm not saying she was the only player,
but all she could. She was holding it down.
She did. She did all she could. It was actually, it pained me to see that, because she had to be in that position, you know what I'm saying? Like with a sprained MCL, but also that is Stewie. Stewie she's a champion through and through, always has been since the first day she walked out onto a court. So I say all that to say, what I'm looking forward to are what the teams are going to look like when we see them, because I don't think we truly have seen, like the Minnesota Lynx, they're going to be more rested than everyone else. Is that going to be a good or a bad thing for them? Because sometimes it's a bad thing for teams that have had rest. And then we're going to see a Phoenix team who has the squad back, essentially. And that is exciting to me because we've been seeing some fantastic games in this first round, and we're going to see that in the second round as well.
Yeah, for me, it's interesting. I want to start first actually with the coaching and the adjustments that were made. I do think that Phoenix made better adjustments and they were able to get more from the adjustments that they made, where New York, at sometimes they felt a little handcuffed in ways, and the execution wasn't where we saw Phoenix. That inverted pick and roll really changed things for that game. And so now you've got Nate Tibbetts going up against Cheryl Reeve. She might not throw them blazers in the crowd like she used to, but sis is still a good coach. And she's already feeling some kind of way about, we'll talk about award season and maybe her team being disrespected. Cheryl Reeve is from Jersey. She was feeling disrespected, and how game 5 went. Ashley already handled that, so I ain't got to get into it. She's feeling a little disrespect, feeling a little salty. She decided to carry, that bag of salt with her all season, and now I don't know, Vegas gave her more fuel, so she gonna have some things on that whiteboard that are gonna have this team ready to go. What I find interesting is, can Minnesota do better against the physicality that inevitably is going to come from Phoenix? And I do think they have the personnel to do it. I think they have the defensive discipline to be able to do that. Now, if New York had gotten a few more stops, because they kept in there, and we didn't always see that version of New York where they got a little scrappy. We talked about it on the last show, right, Ashley? We need to see a little of that New York moxie, that New York swag. Wasn't always there, wasn't there with consistency, and wasn't there with consistency beyond Stewart and Ionescu, who also went off in that game and found a way, even though they were really terrorizing her on the defensive side. So for me, Phoenix is going to want to do that. And Nate Tibbetts said something to the effect after game 3 of, we built this team for defense. That's our identity. We want to play physical, and we'll get our points where we can. They're going to have to do a little bit more than just get points where they can, playing a Minnesota squad that has Kayla McBride, obviously Nafisa Collier. You have, I think that Natisa Heidemann has been phenomenal for them off of the bench. Jessica Shepard can give them good minutes when it comes to the post. So yeah, you're going to need a little bit more than like serviceable offense against this Minnesota squad, even though I'm expecting Phoenix to try and set the tone with their physicality.
Yeah, I think that both these teams are interesting for different reasons, but it is prediction time. I don't know if we gave our predictions for the Fever Aces, so we can do that in this segment as well. So let's start with the series that we're talking about, though, and that is the Mercury and the Lynx. I'm going with the Lynx to still win this one. I'm going for them to win this one, I would say game 4. I don't think it goes 5 games. I do think the Mercury get a game, but I think that the Lynx are just prepared for this moment. They've been waiting for this moment. They've been waiting for the opportunity to get back to the finals and kind of claim what, they were really disappointed about not getting last season. And I don't think they're going to let anyone or anything stop them from that goal. And it would have to be such an uncharacteristic performance from the Lynx for me to bet against them in this series. So give me the Minnesota Lynx game 4.
I'm going Lynx in 4 too, for basically everything that Ashley said, basically everything that we've already talked about. And, I have flip-flop, it hurt me. I had to last night. Chris asked me, I was like, come on, Chris, why you do this to me? I had to switch it because for the same reasons that Ashley just, like the momentum, I believe strongly in giving respect to the team that has earned the respect up to that point. Yes, everything can switch. You can have a phenomenal game, but the Minnesota Lynx have earned, I think, the benefit of the doubt in this series throughout the season. And so I'm going with them in 4 as well.
I too am going with Lynx in 4. However, I do want to say I feel like this first game is going to be really interesting because we're going to see them figuring out each other. But ultimately, the reason why I'm picking it in 4, and also the Lynx, is just the focus that they've had the entire season. That has not wavered, for them. They may have had some losses that weren't Lynx looking like games, you know what I'm saying, where we were like, hold on, where did that come from? But they always came back and adjusted. And even when they had some adversity, like Fee being out, they took care of business. And so, and also, let's just be clear, they do have a chip on their shoulder from what happened last year, and they have a goal in mind. And so while I think this will be an interesting series, and there will be some moments where we're like, hold on now, come on, Phoenix, like, we see you. But at the end of the day, I do think that the Lynx will take it in 4 as well. But I'm also a little nervous about these predictions because it's been so unpredictable.
Right. It would be funny if it's not Lynx in 4 and all 3 of us are wrong. But this is where I think our predictions might differ a little bit. So we're going to go back down the snake. Alicia, we're going to start with you this time. We got to go back to the Fever and the Aces, a little bit more of a wild card series. I feel like out of the 2, which way are you leaning?
This one's hard, but I'm leaning to the Aces for sure. And I would say I think it'll go down to the wire. I think there's going to be I think it's going to go down to the wire. And I think that, that heart that I've talked about with Indiana is going to get some games for sure. I don't think they're just going to go out right away. I think they're going to battle, but at the end of the day, the Aces, while we hadn't seen it in the first half, that kind of like championship pedigree, the coaching of Becky Hammon as well, and just the will to win, the Asia Wilson of it all. Let's be clear, she's not going to let that team fail. When she's put on a stage, she brings the best out of her, her teammates, and so. And I'm not saying it's just her. I mean, Alyssa Smith has been doing her thing. She's going to hold it down. It's going to be a battle, but I see the Aces prevailing.
I believe I am also going to take the Aces. I keep going back and forth on whether I think it's 4 or 5 games because, again, momentum, giving a team the benefit of the doubt really means a lot to me. And I don't know that I have a real answer here because on the one hand, you have an Indiana team we've already talked about. What do they have to lose, right? They've already performed much better than a lot of people expected, given the injuries. Maybe not what we thought from them in the beginning of the season, but given the injuries. And so that scrappiness, the Kelsey Mitchell factor of it all is really hard to bet against. And then I think about also, are the Aces feeling more like they earned a win or they survived? And that's interesting too, because I think for the Aces, some teams they might buckle, but I don't think that's how the Aces operate. They dropped a 53 some odd point game or lost by a 53-point deficit, and that turned around the whole season to where they were unstoppable for 17 games. They don't need a 17-game winning streak to win a championship. If they're on a 17, then that means they're getting ready for another one. You know what I'm saying? They don't need 17 games. So that to me makes the Aces very dangerous. They get into that, that Michael Jordan kind of, warped reality, that could be very dangerous. So I think I'm going to go Aces. I'm definitely going Aces, but I am going to say in 5. I think I agree with Alicia that we're going to go the distance. I just think that there's a scrappiness in Indiana that I respect and that I quite honestly for the theater want to see what they could do, with taking this down to the wire with the Aces.
Yeah, I agree with everyone's points, but I'm going to actually go Aces in 4, just like I did Lynx in 4. I just think that at this time of year, I think experience matters. And yes, I think the Fever have been moving, and the fact that they got out of this first round is a testament to just how much better I think they are as a team that a lot of people gave them credit for, and how much more tenacity they have, even with everything kind of stacked against them that they have. But I also think that as you get deeper into any playoff series, name a sport, I do think experience matters. I do think championship DNA matters. and nobody has championship DNA like the Aces do. And I just think that they didn't come this far just to come this far. And it would be really surprising to me if they just kind of reverted back to the team that we saw earlier in the season, having this trajectory, having this momentum, especially going against a Fever team that is really beaten up and hasn't really had the experience in the postseason like they have. This is a team that knows how to win championships. This is championships. This is a team that has won multiple championships. This is a team that knows how to be in tough series. And I just think that I would be very surprised if they, meaning the Aces, allowed this to go 5 games, because I think just like in the NBA where you say anything can happen in the game 7, you don't want to go against the Fever in a game 5 scenario, because they're a team that has everything to prove and nothing to lose. Like it's like putting a lion in a corner, essentially. Like you don't want to put a lion in a corner. You just want to let that lion do what it's got to do and you just get out the way. I don't think the Aces, one of my favorite expressions, I know some people hate it, should play with their food in this scenario, because I don't think the Fever are anything to play with. And if you will give them an inch, they're going to take a mile. So I believe that the Aces are going to try to wrap this up as quickly as possible. And for me, that means wrapping it up in 4 games, because 5, you're asking for anything to happen. And I don't think they want to go that route. That's just my personal opinion.
No, I love it. I love it.
Yeah, well, I guess we're going to see. I mean,
we're going to see.
We're going to see about these predictions for sure. But one thing that we have been seeing are these end of season awards that they have been giving out. And, there's been a lot. There's still some major ones that need to be announced. So we do want to give a shout out to Coach of the Year, Natalie Nakase. I repeat, Natalie Nakase won Coach of the Year. And she definitely deserved that on every single level. Congratulations to her and what the team, the Valkyries, did this year. But one thing we were a bit surprised about was for the Defender of the Year, it was announced that they were co-Defender of the Year award, and that went to Alana Smith and also A'ja Wilson. And when that came out, I don't know what you guys thought, because I have some thoughts, but I'm going to start with you, Erica. When you saw that it was okay, what were your thoughts on that? Because it set social ablaze.
It did. I got to be honest, like I didn't think on it very, very much. Like I just was like, all right, I guess that's, I guess the thought that came to my mind was, what is the voting pool? And is there a way like to break a tie? But there's a lot of voters. I mean, if you add up all them numbers, like there's just a lot of voters. And I don't know. I know Becky has said some things talking about, well, if she was Defensive Player of the Year last year, now she's not the best this year. That's always an interesting argument to me. Like I hear where you're coming from, and that's almost like saying, well, if you were the champion last year, that you're immediately champion the next year. So I don't know, but Alana Smith has done her thing for Minnesota. That was definitely someone that I voted for. I understand the A'ja Wilson conversation, and I think that a lot of times with an award like Defensive Player of the Year, people have difficulty justifying that, maybe considering how the team is playing defense. Now, is that fair or not? I don't know. But, again, I didn't think too much on it. But I did enjoy the tea and the shade that was being tossed back and forth.
Yeah, it was a lot.
I personally don't believe in co-awards. I know some people are going to hate that I say this. It gives me very much the issue that I kind of have with a lot of young sports teams, like middle school level, elementary school level, giving out like ribbons to everybody. There's only one winner. Like only one person can win. That's the real world. There's first place, there's second place, there's third place. It's not multiple gold medals for first, second, and third. There's a gold medal, which represents the winner, and then everyone places after that. I don't like what co-awards represent. I don't like what participation trophies represent. because the realistic way of the world is there is a winner and there is a loser. Like it is what it is. One of my favorite movies of all time is Ricky Bobby, Talladega Nights. And like there's a line in that movie where he basically says, if you ain't first, you're last. Like there's only one winner. So like for me, a co-award is just kind of, for lack of a better word, I think it's lazy. I think it's unfair. I think that if it came down to the wire like that, put another vote to it. Like if it's something that is so close to the point where you can't make a determination who actually won it, then have the voters vote again until there's a actual determined singular winner. Like I don't want to see a co-MVP. I don't want to see a co-rookie of the year. I don't like, those awards are meant for one person and one person only. And I think it dilutes the importance of the award, whatever the award is. It dilutes the importance of the award when you make it a co-award, because that means, that represents to me, and I could be thinking too much into it, but that represents to me like if you're close enough, you're eligible. No, you have to be the best. You have to be head and shoulders above everybody else in that particular category to win this award. And when you split an award down the middle, it's like splitting the homecoming crown for the home. There's only one homecoming queen, bro. Like there's not, everybody can't win. Like there's only one president that wins the election. We don't have we don't have co-presidents. You know what I mean? Like we just, unfortunately, we don't have co-presidents. Like it's just not how the real world works. So I actually hate co-awards, and I hate that they did this. That's my opinion.
No notes. Ashley said exactly what I feel in the recount situation. There has to be some kind of protocol when this happens, because inevitably when there are votes, there will be a vote tie. And I put that very loosely in quotes because it just seems, I don't know, improbable that there would be that tie in this particular award with the two particular people that ended up being co. However, if there is, some type of something that happens in that instance, there has to be some type of recount that happens. And also, I know Erica, I want to say it was like either 2 episodes ago or maybe even the last episode, because they're all running together at this point. However, you talked about, being a voter, and I just would love to know the voter criteria across the board at some point too, to see who is putting these votes in, because and not to say that they aren't qualified, but what qualifies them to put the votes in as well. Just when it comes down to the numbers that occurred, I would love to know what's behind those numbers. That was one of the things that,
and that's one thing that we haven't had transparency. Again, I can only say that I am a voter and be transparent with my vote, but that is not something that's required from us. I was asked and tapped several seasons ago, and as far as I know, I'm not. I'll say this. This way, I've not been presented with any qualifications, so or the things that the criteria to your point. Now I would imagine, I would hope that sis, my work stands
you got that, girl. You got
absolutely
it. But not the people we refer to.
Like I said, I'm gonna be transparent. I don't know. I'm not asked to meet certain criterion. My work has been fluid, like a lot of other people who I know to have votes, which includes broadcasters and the like. But definitely something that we need to talk about some other time, fam, because I got thoughts.
For sure. I mean, listen, there's a lot of other awards that will be given out, and I'm sure we'll be having this conversation again in some capacity. But to remind everyone to make sure you are tapped in with all of our WNBA content, and of course, women's sports across the board. Make sure you're following us on all of our social media channels listed below. Make sure you are subscribed with your notifications turned all the way up when it comes to YouTube, because there's a lot of episodes coming your way that are outside of our normal programming schedule, and you won't know unless you're tapped in. And then at the end of the show, there will be a QR code that you can scan, and that will help you find us wherever you listen to your pods. We're on Spotify, we're on Apple. So look, there's no reason to not be tapped in with us right here at We Need to Talk Now, presented by AT&T. And we will see you next episode, where we will dissect a lot more basketball. Until then, Bye, guys.
See you next show.